All right, good day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Class is in session. If it's your first time watching this video, know that there are multiple class lessons that you have missed. I have linked those in the description below. For the rest of you who are up to date, let's go ahead and get started. Last time we were talking about language and communication. We defined what language was. We also went into some of its core concepts. Then when we talk about communication, we focus on the origin of communication and what that meant to us and what it means to the course once we get into the Spanish material. Now that we have the background on those two, we're going to now talk about fluency. Now we're going to both define fluency and talk about some of its traits. And the purpose behind this is to help you conceptualize what fluency really is, what it is not, and therefore enable you to have realistic expectation of what lies ahead when you say, I want to be fluent in X language. Okay, so let's go ahead and define fluency for our purposes. This is what fluency is. I'm going to write it out right here. I do apologize because I will be blocking the view for a little bit. Fluency for our purposes is the ability to use your target language to the same extent as your native language. All right? Fluency is the ability to use your target language to the same extent as your native language. That is a simple enough definition. Okay? Yeah. Now, in other words, or a way I could somewhat simplify the definition is by thinking in mathematical terms. What we want when we say we want to be fluent is to have a 1-to-1 ratio to our target language. What does that mean? In essence, we want to bring our target language, in this case Spanish, as close as possible to the level that we currently have our English. That's what it means. That's what it means to have a 1-to-1 ratio. In essence, if I look out the window and I say, that is a car, I'm able to make that statement in English. I can flip to Spanish and say, eso es un carro. Same thing, same meaning, same message, no delays, no hesitation, no nothing. It is a 1-to-1 ratio. All right? Now, if this is true, and this is what fluency is the ability to bring that language to the same level of our language. And it stands to reason that fluency is not a single point in time. In anything, it's a level that you have to build yourself to and then continue to build yourself on up to the point that you decide enough is enough. What do I mean? Fluency is a continuum. Even now, you and I speak English natively. If I were to grab you and put you in a different environment, let's say I put you in a court of law, suddenly your fluency would not be the same. If I do the same thing and I put you instead in a medical office or in a medical meeting, suddenly your fluency will not be the same. So even within the context of us being native speakers of the English language, you won't experience fluency the same way every single time. There are still words that you don't know. There's still concepts that you probably are unfamiliar with. It just so happens that we are at a level where we call ourselves proficient in the language. We are able to operate at a basic level. We can carry our daily activities, and therefore we don't have the need to continue developing our English skills. That is fluency. It's a continuum. You reach a point where you're good enough and you get to decide how further down the road you want to take it. If I were to illustrate this as a graph, it would look something like this. This is a graph, and this would be us. You would start right here. If you're starting with a new language, in this case Spanish, this right here will be your learning curve, which is the hardest part of the learning process. But then you reach a point right here where that curve settles. That is what I would call the proficiency point. That's the point in time where you can learn within the language, you can communicate on a daily basis. It's good enough. You're good. But there's still room for more. You can take it down further if you so choose to. That is how I visualize fluency. Now, the reason I think this idea is so important is because people do think that fluency is just a thing in time, that if you do XYZ for a specific amount of time, you're just going to get it and be done with it. It doesn't work that way. For whatever reason, people have this vague concept of fluency. If I were to express to you an idea from a different field, let's say we go to the gym and I tell you, you know, if you do these 3 movements 3 times a week for 2 weeks, you're going to be able to lift 500 pounds. Even in that scenario, even if you've never been to the gym before or know nothing, the idea alone triggers something in your head that goes, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it's not true. For anybody who knows, lifting 500 pounds is no joke, right? People instinctively know that you have to dedicate a lot. You have to put in the time, the effort, do the drills, whatever the case might be. And it's going to take you months, if not years, to get to that point of lifting 500 pounds. This is a broad, oversimplified example, all right? The same thing is true if I say, you know what, I'm going to sit you down here with this piano, this violin, whatever the case might be. And if you do this couple of things, you're going to be a virtuoso in just a month. Like, no, people instinctively know there's something off about that statement. Nah, it's not 100% true. Unfortunately, I can't place my finger on it. But when it comes to the idea or concept of fluency, people don't have the same reaction. Fluency and its concept exists in this gray land where people actually think that just because they did a couple of things and they do this little app or whatever the case might be, they're going to be fluent, when it doesn't work that way. This is why I'm presenting this idea. This understanding will help you set the tone to what is to come and the task at hand when you say, I want to be fluent in X language, in our case, Spanish. And therefore, you will have realistic expectations, which is ultimately what I want you to have. Because it is by those unrealistic expectations that people fall victim to the lies and stuff that people sell about language learning. And then when they fail to reach the target, they blame themselves and they think that they're not capable of learning, when that is not true at all. You just had the completely wrong expectations of what you were doing. Okay, so let's take a step back. And fluency is the ability to use your target language to the same extent as your native language. In other words, a 1-to-1 ratio. It is not a single point in time. It is a continuum. You get to decide how far you want to take it. Okay. This helps you set realistic expectations, but I'm going to give you an even better example. If I say, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to write here the word car. And I want you to do the following. In the English language, you can pause the video and give it a shot. I want to create as many sentences as you can that involve the word car. For example, that car is red. That's a sentence that involves the word car. I want you to pause the video and do that for a couple of seconds, 3, 4, or 5 seconds, and just freely think of sentences after sentence after sentence, okay? Go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep on going. Most of you, if not all of you, will be able within a second or so to generate a bunch of sentences of any kind, of any sort. You will have an unlimited amount of sentences you can potentially create that have the word car in it, right? So from a skill standpoint, you're up here. Now, if I say, you know what, now we're going to do the same exercise. Everything is the same. But this time around, I want you to do it in Spanish. Same thing. Pause the video, 3 to 5 seconds. Think of as many sentences as you can in Spanish. Go. Most of you, unless you already know some Spanish, will not be able to do that. You're lucky if you are able to create one good sentence within that same time frame. Okay? So in English, you are up here. With Spanish, you drop down to right here. Now, if I take it a step further and say, you know what? Screw Spanish. We're going to make sentences that have the word car in it, but we're going to do it in Russian. Or if you speak Russian, do it in Chinese, whichever the case might be. In that case, you went from up here, from here, to now you're 6 feet under because you don't even know how to utter a single word in Russian or Chinese. Okay? Why do I give you this example? This example exemplifies what we mean when we say, oh, we want to be fluent. Oh, we want to go from 6 feet under and climb ourselves all the way up to this level that we call fluency. This level that we are at with our English native language, that we're so accustomed to it, we don't even think about that. But that perspective, that mind shift is what helps set the correct tone for your learning. Because when you were asking to do the exercise in English, you were perfectly fine. The moment I changed the languages, you flatline mentally. You went beep, nothing comes to the head, right? Now contrast that with the fact that in communication, in order for us to be fluent, when somebody prompts me, says something to me, I have to listen, understand, recreate a message or sentence of some sort, and spit it out. And all of that happens in an instant. And then comparing that to this example, it was taking you 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 seconds to just be able to say a sentence that has one word. And for some of you, especially at the beginning, if I say, how do you say this in Spanish? It's going to take you multiple seconds to remember what the word is. In Spanish, car is carro. With time and practice, you will be able to develop yourself to a point where you think of car and you go, oh, car, carro. Okay? In other words, that time delay from the time that you think of something and the time that you utter it, that should be your true focus and your marker, if you will, of fluency. In other words, instead of looking at fluency as a trait that applies to the whole language, we can scale fluency down to the sum of its parts, which means with every piece of learning that we do or we take place on, you can focus on shrinking that time delay between the time that you think of something and the time that you deliver that something. That is what tells you how good you're doing, and it shows your development through time. Remember when we spoke about communication, video in the description below, we talked about the origin and how that aspect of synthesizing something was the hardest part when it comes to learning a language. That is what enables or unlocks fluency. Here, I'm doing it at a simple level saying, oh yeah, how do you say car? How do you say cat? But the same is true with a sentence. If you want to express the idea of I am hungry, you can't go, if I say, I am hungry, translate that to Spanish. You can go, yo tengo hambre, right? That you can't do that. That I'm obviously, I'm sorry, my throat's dry. 1 second. Obviously, you can't do that. That is not fluency, all right? But the principle remains. With practice and focus, you can decrease the time delay that it takes you from going from prompted to, oh, I thought about it, and boom, I said it. That, in essence, is fluency. So how are we going to be approaching this once we get into the actual Spanish in the following way? We already mentioned that instead of looking at fluency as the wholeness of the language, we can look at it as a sum of its parts, and that's exactly what I will be doing, or we will be doing. Let this box represent the fullness of the Spanish language, right? It's theoretical amount. So that means 100% of everything. Instead of focusing on the whole thing, we're going to divide the language into specified chunks that I have determined based on a number of variables. What we're going to do then, once we get into the actual Spanish, is we're going to park ourselves into one of those boxes. So let's say we go here. We park here, and then I'm going to give you all the relevant information of that particular chunk. All the vocabulary, all the patterns, the structures, the verb, the grammar, all of that jazz will be given to you. And I will be giving you a tool that will enable you to use that knowledge and make it your own playing ground. In essence, I call that the sandbox. You're going to have your own little personal sandbox where you will be able to apply the knowledge that you have gathered, the vocabulary and the grammar, and you will be able to practice that creating aspect of, based on that information, you're going to be able to create sentences, complete messages using the information you have learned. And you will be able to create unique or different sentences that all use that same pattern or patterns that you have learned. What that does is it enables you to drill. And if you drill that information correctly, the amount of time it takes for you to think of something you want to express and actually expressing it goes down. And you do that enough times, you will be able to experience fluency at a micro level. And when you do that, you will experience that momentum of, man, I want to keep going, because then we can move on to the next block. And therefore, you're going to get more vocabulary, more patterns, more grammar, opening up your sandbox a little bit bigger. And now you can even express yourself way more than you used to. So it is a self-feeding process. Think of it as those little swirls that you start here and you start doing this and it keeps swirling and swirling. That's the approach that I'm taking when it comes to presenting and teaching Spanish. But from a concept standpoint, what I want you to understand is that fluency is not something that you have to wait months and years to attain. It is something that you can experience in the here and now with every step that you take as you learn the language. You just have to see it through that lens and focus on that. Fluency is not a single dot in time. It is a continuing process. And just like the previous examples that we've done so far, you can kind of tell you have an instinctive, hopefully, framework of you're over here with your language, you're down here with that new language. There's a lot of climbing to do before you get to an okay level where you say, oh man, I'm quite proficient. So keep this in mind as you start learning Spanish, whether it's with my material or whether it's with some other material. The concept remains the same. Fluency can be experienced at the micro level, and in order for you to be fluent at a macro level, you have to have a massive collection of vocabulary and grammar combined into correct patterns and the ability to be able to think on the spot and generate back and forth. That's how conversation takes place. So if it's taking you 20 seconds to come up with one word, just know that the only thing that's telling you is you got work to do. You have to get more stuff. You got to get better at spitting it out in the instant. The objective when it comes to learning material is this: for you to be able to wield your thoughts at will. Wield your thoughts at will. If you think I am hungry, you can go and say tengo hambre. No delay, no hesitation. If I say, hey, how are you? Hola, ¿cómo estás? You see the difference? English, Spanish, no delay, 1-to-1 ratio. I'm saying the same thing. I'm arriving at the same meaning, but two different languages. That is the ultimate objective. At the beginning, it's not going to be easy. I'm going to be completely transparent with you. But with the right understanding, with the right expectations, and foreknowledge that I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do the work, you will get there. Anybody that goes to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and does the same movements consistently will gain results. Okay? It's not a matter of what if, it's you will. You just don't know when, but you're going to. It's almost a guarantee. If you do the same stuff here, you focus on the information, you do the work, you drill on it, you will get the result. The thing that we can control, you and I, is the when. And that's the thing that people want to sell you. Nobody can. I can't tell you when you're going to reach that. Your body, as you learn, your mind changes. It is a physical process. It's going to take time. But as you do it, you will reach a point where everything suddenly clicks and you go, oh, wait, I can actually say stuff pretty quickly now. That's how you know that you're making progress. Now that we have finished our discussion on fluency, just to recap, we have covered language, communication, and fluency. That will conclude this particular series. Now we're going to get into actual stuff pertaining to Spanish. And in our next class, we're going to be talking about vowels. Okay? So for right now, class is dismissed. Thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you in our next session. Take care.